Hey, what's up, family? Black here. Thank you so much for all the support and feedback that you've given us so far on the podcast. We truly appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you that you have decided to be one of the people who celebrate us becoming better husbands. And with that in mind, you've probably seen with the title of this episode that we're speaking about sex. And we wanted to remind you that 2.5 Husbands meets at the intersection of real life, humor, and relationships. And because of that, we did not want to be inauthentic to who we are when we're speaking about sex. But at the same time, we are mindful of you guys as our family and the wide range of experiences when it comes to sex, and therefore the sensitivities that you might have as part of our family. And we wanted to respect that. We wanted to be sensitive towards that and mindful. And so what we've done throughout this episode, even as we speak on sex, that we are holding those two things tightly together, who we are and who you guys are. And so as you watch this, please keep that in mind. And we really appreciate you giving us feedback and commenting and sharing this with anyone else that you think will benefit from our content. So thank you so much for that. Enjoy.
1, 2, 3, 4.
What's good, beautiful people? Welcome to 2.5 Husbands, where we celebrate becoming better husbands.
It's 2.5, even though there are 3 husbands, and that's because at some point, one of us, if not all of us, was not fully the husband that we were supposed to be.
And that's why we actually come here on a weekly basis to discuss some of the issues that we face, some of the issues we are seeing around us, and we hope that the journey that we started with you and for you is going to benefit you,
And yours. Gents, I don't know about you guys, but I remember growing up, I think it was around varsity high school times, whenever the church would have chats about sex. It would be an excitement. And it's
You'd
not an
be
excitement.
excited.
No, I would.
Now,
And the
I would want to
reason-
crawl, bro. I want to go wash the
No,
car.
so my thing
the
was,
ocean.
I just always felt like
I was having sex, not going to church. When you guys were going to church.
There you have it. No, the reason for that is because I think, obviously, I don't think the church in the past has been very active having chats about sex.
Yeah, sure.
Having healthy conversations about sex. And that's why even people in the church found their sexual education outside. I mean, it was LO in the streets, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm hoping that there's a similar excitement, but more than anything else, a comfort that some of the husbands are having when they see the title. And they're like, you know what? It's actually something that we need to be able to talk about as husbands, you know? But in this case, we're going to be talking about marriage sex in a sexually crazed culture.
Hey,
Is that the
crazy.
English?
Hey.
That's the English.
Marital or marriage sex?
Marital marriage.
Come on now.
I don't know. It
Yeah.
depends. It depends which part of South Africa
Marriage
or
is
Africa you're
involved.
in.
That's all we're talking about.
And you're probably wondering why Prince started off with the church. Well, we know historically, the church has advocated for marriage, and many other religions have advocated for marriage. We married, and so most of the time when people speak about marriage, it's always in the context of religion or like the traditional cultures. So this is for anyone. I mean, all of you are probably having sex out there. so we
Or
here.
have had.
We here. If you're a husband, we hope that you're having sex in your marriage.
Amen.
In your marriage.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Amen. But what we do see, unfortunately, is that I think there's something about marriage that has lost its worth with regards to sex. I mean, there are other issues surrounding marriage.
Oh, yeah.
The culture that we live in now. And what we do see is that, unfortunately, sex is no longer exclusive to marriage for married people.
That's true.
And what we do find is that marriage is seen as something else. Maybe it's there for stability or for rearing children or I don't know, maybe a
Partnership.
social norm or partnership, And then when it comes to sexual needs or expressions, whatever we're talking about, it's seen as something that you can experience outside.
Outside
You
of
can look
marriage.
for it out there. So just maybe off the block, what are your guys' views on marriage or marital sex in the sexually crazed culture? Like, what is it that you have seen? And what is it that maybe has stood out for you?
So, sorry, bro, you wanted to say something?
No, all I was going to say is I feel like we've inverted the the hierarchy, if I can call it that. We've made sex the most important thing, and that's what we start with. So hence this idea of you must test and see whether you know you're able to live your life having this type of sex with this type of person.
Yeah.
And we've started that with that as the foundation, and it's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
Sex is as a result of intimate relationship, safety, trust, all of these things. But the way that we're doing it, whether you're in the church or outside of the church or whatever religious context you're coming from, we place all of the foundational weight of the relationship on the intercourse. And actually, the intercourse benefits from the foundation of all of those other things I've mentioned.
Bro, those are bars. And I think there's a whole lot to double tap on that, you know, and for me, I feel like that's where the meat of this conversation is. But before we get there, what is this sexually crazed culture? What are we even saying with that? You know, where do we see it? You know, some of us might be fish swimming in water, and any fish will not stop to think, "Hey, I'm in water." So maybe let's paint the picture. What is this sexually crazed culture? What do we mean? When we use that phrase.
I mean, from a value point of view, right? You look at how. So as an individual, I've had a look at my immediate context, and I have looked at this thing called sex, and the reality is it's a very important aspect of our lives. You know, so much so that you find that it's sexual abuse is traumatic. One of the most traumatic forms of abuse. You know, and because I've seen its potential of abuse and how it's been abused, I think I've come to a point where I'm like, obviously this thing is big. Obviously this thing is important. And for that reason, I think I've had reservations in terms of treating it like whatever. Like, I think on my side, I'm just like, there's something here that is very important that if dealt with recklessly, I think it can be to your demise. And then once I reached that conclusion and I saw how casual we are with it, I'm like, it makes sense why we have some of the ills that we have in our culture. And it's not just sexual abuse. I mean, even the social dynamic between men and women.
And so that's what I want to get into. Where else do we see that, you know? So where else are we casual with sex? Because in sex, I mean, you use the phrase intercourse, you know, but is that all that we would define as sex?
No,
not at all. And I think that's the interesting part, right? And again, we are 2.5 husbands, so implying as well that we come from a space where we grew into these roles of being a husband. And so there is the marital side, which is, okay, cool, you know, you say to your partner, all right, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and in that context, there's sex. But prior to that, it's not to say that you have not been involved in sexual behavior, whether that's on your own, in terms of masturbation or pornography or whatever you found yourself dabbling in. There's a context that you come out of and move into a marriage, and there's also an expectation that you may have in marriage that's coming from a space where you're like, you probably shouldn't have been doing that at 16 at high school, watching what you were watching. Maybe just stick to Tom and Jerry if that's what's working for you. And I think that's, for me, when I see that element of sex crazed culture, I'm actually like, there's a whole web of things that gets you into exploring sex.
And before maybe you rest on it and you maybe take it further, I just want to nuance what he says about the various forms of sexual abuse, I'd put it that way, that we experience and that we exercise as a culture.
Let me double tap on that. Are you using the phrase sexual abuse?
Not interpersonal. I mean, using the concept of sex.
Sorry.
Thanks for that clarity. So when I look at how we are now as a culture, because the reality is, you look at the history of time, and sex and its issues have always been there. Sexual abuse has always been there, right, in different forms. But now with the technology that we have, I think it is worse than back in the day. When you look at access, when you look at the ease, when you look at how it's easier now to find yourself sexually sinning at least in terms of the physical manifestation. Because in our minds, we already know that there's a lot that's happening there.
Yeah.
And in the history of time, I think it's always been. But you look at the things we watch, the things we listen to. I'm like, there's enough sexual temptation in the various forms of media for us to actually find ourselves abusing the concept of sex on a continuous basis to the point where we actually become desensitized.
Yeah, hundreds.
We become desensitized to the filth that is happening around us, you know?
Yeah.
It's sexually crazed because we have to oftentimes pull ourselves back and be like, hold up, this is actually wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the issues that we find ourselves in if you're so involved and you're so immersed in the culture to the point where you actually lose your own mind and your own way of thinking. To say, but actually, wait a minute. Like, is this right? Is this okay?
It's probably worth also double tapping on that. I mean, I've like pinned a lot of things, but somebody would even say like, where do you get your categories of whether this thing is right or wrong? You know, because you've placed a lot of moral judgments on this thing already, even in how you're presenting it. So it's like, what standard do you have to determine that this thing is wrong, or right? You know, but again, I'm just putting a peg on that.
Sure.
Maybe to add my 2 cents on why I think we live in a sexually crazed culture. I mean, driving on the highway alone, there's stupid companies that sell paper, right? Use like naked girls
I
to
saw
sell.
that on a van.
I'm like, you selling pampir, dog.
I saw that on a van.
Why
dog.
do I need to see a chick who's not dressed for me to be convinced to buy paper?
You see what the thing is. So I'm in marketing, right?
Yeah.
To some extent, I'm like, that is a good marketing strategy. Because you're getting the exposure in
get
terms
the
of what you
attention.
are selling.
But here's the thing. I'm thinking about the girl now and not your paper.
No, the funniest one is cars. I'm like, what
Hundreds.
does a lady who's naked have to do with the horsepower
But
of this?
that one is even better.
That's
because
better
the car
though.
gives you
Like,
power.
so that you
and the
can
power
get
it gets
so
you a
you
girl.
can get the girl.
Exactly.
Right?
But the paper one, I'm
And
just
let me
like, use
clarify.
paper.
When I was saying that my mind was stuck on the girl, it's not that I was like, oh, this chick is hot. I was thinking,
What is she doing here?
What the hell is she doing here? Right? That's what I was thinking. So I'm like, if you trying to sell me to buy paper, you've lost me, dog. 'Cause I'm thinking this stuff doesn't make sense.
But does that not then...
Then I go to the mothers or the fathers that are driving their kids to school on the highway. I'm like 14, 15-year-olds, 9-year-olds. That's what they're seeing.
Yeah.
Right? Besides that highway experience,
Yeah.
music videos, right? If I think back to 2002, there was a video that was released called Summertime with an artist called Mafusane and Mischief. Mischief was from Zim.
Okay.
Right? That thing was banned, boy. Right? Well, what were those girls wearing? Bikinis, swimming costumes, full ones. Banned, right?
2002.
2002.
Okay, yeah.
There was an outcry, dog, right?
To say this can't happen.
Parents were like, nah, dog. I think it took them probably like that whole year not playing that video on SABC One, and then they brought it the following year. I think people just softened up, whatever. But take that, 2002, right?
Yeah.
Bikinis, how people would be dressed if you go to the beach now,
Yeah.
right? Fast forward to the music videos that are playing now, bro. That's soft porn, right?
Yep.
Soft porn,
Yep.
like, properly, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, so it's music videos. Obviously, then the music itself and what people are singing about, rapping about, the dances in music videos, etc. Movies, right? I'm like, what was PG, right? When I was growing up, dog, it was like, was a nun that was probably gonna kiss somebody.
Yeah.
That was PG.
Yeah.
Now the nun is an outfit. It's not an actual nun. It was a nurse when I was growing up.
Now
who's
it's
probably
a nun.
gonna kiss a doctor. Now the nurse is a nurse's outfit. But that's PG right now.
But what I was gonna then say is, but does that not show you that because people, even whatever you believe, the consensus is that sex is powerful. To the point
No,
where
hundreds.
you are going to use it in
Hundreds.
marketing paper.
Hundreds.
And it works.
No, it is. It is powerful.
And it works.
It is powerful. It is powerful. It is powerful. And I think maybe going back to what you were saying about the abuse of it, and which goes back to my other question of asking where does the question of morality come in?
Yeah.
It is powerful. And if it's used incorrectly, I think it does a lot of damage.
Yeah.
If it's used properly, it does. Does a whole lot of benefits. Right?
yeah,
We spoke about the benefits. Hence, I was pegging a bunch of things that we'll come back to. But we could all agree, right? We live in a sexually crazed culture. You know?
Man.
And I think, to your point earlier on, I don't think that we necessarily getting worse. Right? You guys could push back on this. I think we just have more exposure, right? I think technology...
That's the worst I was actually referring to.
I think technology and social media, et cetera, have just moved walls.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, listen, like...
Are we saying our grandparents were having sex with animals?
They were wild.
Whoa, with animals?
Yes.
Okay.
Bestiality.
Yes. Bestiality is not...
Because I'm like, whoa.
It's not new, bro.
I mean...
You started off
it's
with
just-
sex and the church, right? So if I think of Genesis, for example, right, and you think of the story of Lot, Lot,
What he wanted to do.
Lot was willing.
What? He was a lot.
Lot was a lot.
He was a lot.
Lot was willing to give his girls over to a bunch of dudes who were hungry, right? Who wanted to chow angels, right? They saw angels coming into Sodom, and then they were like, "Yeah, see, we've never had this kind." They wanted to chow the angels.
When was the last time we heard anyone wanting to chow angels? Okay, I
You
guess
see what I'm saying?
you're saying.
They wanted to chow angels. Lot was like, "Don't chow the angels, chow my daughters." You read later on, the daughters actually had husbands, bro, right? But they weren't married yet. And so by the time they leave the city, they bounce. Obviously, we know what happens. Things go in smoke, explosion, whatever. They find themselves in a valley. Don't those daughters turn around and think, hey, we don't have any kids. So they get their father drunk and they chow the dad.
Hey, all right, cool. No, point taken.
I just disclaimer. I hope you guys are. I hope you guys are aware of the. I need to make this disclaimer. I hope you guys are aware of the sensitivity we're approaching this conversation with, even though we use words like "chow," right? It's
No.
It's not to make it any less of a reality.
No. It is.
But I just to people that might be sensitive to the language.
Hundreds.
And I think to that point, for me, when we're now talking about, because fine, point taken, God down. You win. Uncle Lot was doing this a long time ago. He was seasoning salt upon everything. Bars,
Hey,
check your Bible.
come on now.
But nonetheless, I think when
Original Salt Bay. The original.
that's good. We need
His
that.
wife is actually a Salt Bay.
Salt Bay. Like,
Lot's wife.
Guys,
is
there's
a
nothing
Salt
new.
Bay. Anyway,
That's good. I wish we had that film, but
We need help.
but then
We need help a
you
bit.
can do that while you're watching.
Yeah, no.
But the whole thing, I think, to your point, wow. Okay, I got tears.
yeah, no.
When you look at it, I think, to your point, right? For me, what becomes interesting is that link between sexual abuse in terms of whether you put it in morality categories or sexual abuse in the sense of actually abusing someone's
Violation.
sexual rights.
Okay, yeah.
I'm like, you see those things, and I think that differentiator that you are asking him to validate, I actually think are intertwined.
Yeah, no, very
No,
much so.
sure.
Because
Very
you
much so.
abuse your sexual integrity,
Yeah.
it can lead to and translate
abuse
in
of-
the abuse of someone else's sexual integrity, and
Yeah.
that cycle just keeps
Hundreds.
And to the
Hundreds. So maybe to open that up, abusing sex, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what did you call sex the last time? Anyway, I'll call it a gift. We'll get into that. But abusing the gift of sex, right? then turns you into a monster. So then you go abuse.
Yep.
Yeah.
Other people,
No,
right?
definitely.
So-
And I mean, there could be someone that's listening, and to your point, saying maybe, am I really abusing sex if I am not interacting with someone directly? And some would say maybe I'm just watching pornography.
Yeah.
I'm not abusing anyone.
Yeah.
But I mean, we can get into the complexities of that. But even if you weren't watching pornography, say maybe you were just masturbating,
Yeah.
the reality is by the time you get into marriage,
Yeah.
that is going to manifest in an abusive way
Mm-hmm.
to your partner. So there's no way.
Even
there's no,
yourself.
Even for yourself.
Even for yourself.
Because
yourself,
you're
yeah.
creating an appetite that no human is
Yep.
able to
Yep.
fulfill.
Yep.
So I'm like, nah, it's not something that you're doing
Yeah.
of yourself. You're just like, oh no, okay, cool. It's me and my screen, whatever. But then when you actually then do have sex with someone, you're expecting them to know what you were watching on your screen and to be however many girls that
Yeah.
you've watched.
Yeah.
Or even if it's, because again, we don't want to make it seem like it's just men. If you're a woman,
Yeah.
you have unrealistic expectations of your husband.
Sure.
I mean, I'm just gonna say it. 2 hours is not normal.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it there.
Well, okay.
We said we want to be sensitive.
Yeah.
I get your point.
Okay, so maybe to steer the conversation, because we have to get into the question
I was about to say,
of sex in marriage. So we've painted a picture, at least, you know, to the best of our abilities on what a sexually crazed culture looks like.
Yeah.
Maybe let's get into what standards we use.
Let's bring it home.
To define what is wrong and right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why do we even? Why does something qualify as the abuse of sex, as a activity, as a gift, as an idea, whatever? What qualifies that? And then let's get into the, because then we'll speak about the benefits and then get into the marriage stuff.
Sure. So I think. Should I
Yeah,
start?
yeah.
So I'll touch on one aspect. I'll try to touch on one aspect. I think we need to start as a people. We need to start by, I think maybe going back and asking yourself, through what lens do you look at life, right? For someone like myself, it's straightforward. I'm a Christian, and part of being a Christian, I have found, is that it's actually simpler, if I could put it that way, because I don't have to define things. They're defined.
already.
You know what I'm saying? I don't have to make sense out of what sex is. I've been told what sex is. So I think as a people, we need to start by asking ourselves.
Can already feel the daggers in fun. You've been told.
I mean,
That sounds like restriction. Anyway, let's go.
true, but I mean, we would define it as freedom. But anyway,
Yeah.
so I would, so I would say we need to start by questioning ourselves. What is the lens through which we look at life?
Sure.
And that is obviously the same lens that will then define how we look at sex.
Sure.
And you'll find that for some people that don't have a definition, if you don't have a definition of, or you don't know what lens you look at life through, then it makes sense why your sexual ethic or your view on sex is just here, there, and everywhere.
Sure. 100. Dope.
So I think that's one,
Dope.
which is the morality religious lens.
Yeah.
For me, I'll take a sociological view.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, the relationships that thrive, even if you look at it, I can't remember what study it was, but what they were saying was one. So if you look at it personally, if you want a banging sex life, actually, research suggests that the people that are having sex with one person are actually having better sex than people who are having sex with many people.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool. You take a purely pleasure lens.
Yeah.
That's
Even anecdotally, we know that. Experientially.
absolutely, because you get to learn and understand. And again, it speaks to that vulnerability, right?
Sure.
Because the relationship has a lot of other tenets that is resting upon, the expression of that intimacy physically is just mind-blowing.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that's the one side. Number two, when you look at it sociologically now, when you say, okay, cool, let's zoom out and not just look at the two of you having sex, but let's look at it in terms of in the context of society. We know from an African culture perspective the benefit of having a interconnected society. One. Two, if it is part of the process of creating life, then you want to be having and creating a stable environment for these lives to live in.
Sure.
Introducing other people into that context has dire situations
Muddies the
that come
water.
out of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know this, like we see it in the terms of broken families or separated families and the impact that has on the children. So I'm like, even if you separated from
the moral
morality and the religious elements, there's sociological elements that one can look to and be like, again, another lens. Maybe this is not the best thing for my children, for myself, even for your wife. Even for you. Because
Even for
you
you
wouldn't
as a
want
man.
to have your wife having
Yeah.
many partners. Neither does she want to have
Yep.
you having many partners.
We are worse even.
And even on that, bro, you know, which I think should be a discussion for some other time, because the pushback would be polygamy from an African societal perspective. And sure, you know, at a very surface level, we could argue that just hearing some of the stories of wives and kids who came from polygamous marriages and how they felt like that stuff was beneficial economically for the group. But relationally, there was some breakdown, etc., etc. And just even how polygamy was actually done historically in African societies compared to what's happening now. Totally different, right? But again, that's another conversation for another day. But I totally agree with you. And so I'm just saying, if there's any pushback in that regard, I do think there's enough evidence, enough studies, enough books written on some of the effects of polygamy. For me, I would say, man, just... earlier on we spoke about the power that sex is. I think used in its proper context, which is the context that you guys have described, marriage. You know, there's a loving husband, a loving wife, people who are committed. It's a safe environment. There's intimacy. There's vulnerability. You know, because that's the other power of sex, that it grows both people. Right? Besides the benefit of having children, but just the gluing effect, the cleaving effect that sex has.
Oxytocin.
Hundreds, bro.
That's right.
You know? So after you've had a very good session, right?
You can conquer the world.
You could, right? In fact, that's the only time you are a power couple. Right? The only time. You are a power couple.
Preach it. Let him use you. Let him use.
Go there. Right? So there's a lot of benefits that come with that. So used in its proper context, bro, this thing could be amazing. Right? For you guys as a couple, if you have kids, for your kids, because once the parents are thriving, obviously that spills over to the kids, right? But once we take it out of that, right? Out of its proper boundaries, right? And again, I can hear a lot of ninjas saying stuff boundaries. What the hell is that?
One freedom.
Which again, it could be a philosophical argument that, you know, nothing on earth doesn't have boundaries. Everything has boundaries.
Maybe that's the kind of chat we would have as a live chat, actually.
And we can engage.
Every single thing in this world has boundaries, right? If we didn't have boundaries and things weren't where they're supposed to be, that's the pure definition of what chaos is, right? And I would even take that into marriage. Once you take sex outside of marriage, you left with chaos, right? The perfect illustration I've ever heard of sex is calling it a fire, and which I think it is. You know, in its proper context, in a fireplace, it gives warmth. It gives light.
And it makes good food.
It makes good food. It gathers people around it, right? So it has a communal effect. Whether it's the community between the couple, community within the couple and the children, if that family is thriving, it's within the big societal community. That works. Outside of that, bro, if you take fire and put it on the couch, burns. You take fire and put it on your lap, burns, right? Take it to the club for a lap dance, burns. Right?
It burns. And it might actually burn at the doctor.
And hundreds, bro. And that's the thing. That's what chaos is. Right? If I'm not vulnerable with my wife, we don't trust each other. Blah, blah, blah. We're sleeping around, but we bring diseases, bro. Right? That stuff is gonna hurt. It's not just gonna hurt physically. It's gonna hurt emotionally. It might even lead to death. That's what happens. That's the chaos we're speaking about when we think of sex outside of the context of marriage, right? So anyway, I think
Yeah.
That's where we all at. We would agree that
No, definitely.
this thing is supposed to be in marriage.
Yeah.
But then while we're having sex in marriage, how do we think of it?
Yeah.
From our own experiences, what's good about it? What's the takeaway? You know?
Yeah.
A husband who's listening to this, watching this, and thinking, yeah. So what's the point of this?
Yeah.
Or the husband, future husband, rather, you know,
Yeah.
who's thinking about, I need to probably reconsider how I view this power, this gift, this idea called sex, so that I can prep myself for marriage.
So I think when you look at the chat we've had, we spend quite the chunk of time speaking about the context that we live in when
Yeah.
you look at sex,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And to any other husband out there, I think it should show them that it's about knowing the space that you are in. You need to be aware of the space that you are in.
Yep.
We are followers of Christ, but we are we are followers of Christ in a broken world.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
and us getting to that promised land of good sexual relations in marriage requires us to take note of the world we live in, to take note of our involvement in the world that we've lived in before marriage, and also our involvement in the world we live in marriage.
Yeah.
So there's a knowledge and a transformation of the mind that needs to happen, where you acknowledge what you are seeing around you and how you've interacted with that, because we had lives before we were married. You know,
hundreds.
majority, all of us, we've been more single than we have been married in terms of years.
Yeah.
So we need to take register of the things that we've experienced, so that we also know, at least for us who are followers of Christ, we know what we need to bring at God's feet. And just be like, God,
sure.
here's my brokenness.
Yeah.
Please deal with it. So we need to be aware of that. And then in marriage, then I think what we also then need to do, because we can oftentimes then get stuck on the negative of what's happening in the world, we need to spend time looking at the positive things that come out of sex and marriage.
Yeah.
We need to glorify this thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
A fire in its place.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? There's a lot of good that comes from it. So as we celebrate becoming better husbands, part of that is celebrating the good gifts that we have as husbands, which is sex.
Yeah, dope. I agree. Maybe 2 seconds, right? Which is 2 minutes in real time. Where were you before marriage when it comes to sex?
Yeah.
Where are you now?
Where was I with regards to sex? Nikele guy, bare. Oh no, le guy.
Hey.
Wadi jaja.
What did you
What are you asking for that? The reason I'm asking.
No, it's just your
because-
story, bro.
Okay.
Again, but I said it in 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
So brief context, I grew up, I'm a pastor's kid, grew up in the church.
You don't have to be completely naked, pun intended, but
Yeah, because I was also asking so that I can protect
Yeah.
my wife. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
100, yeah,
So
100.
I grew up in the church. I always had a healthy fear of
Yeah.
sex outside of
Yeah.
marriage. Always, that was always the case. And I thank God by His grace. I had a father who actually made me fall in love with the concept of sex in marriage.
Okay.
So much so that anything outside, I was like, I'm not about that.
Yeah.
Dope.
So I was like, it's cool. I don't have to. So walked into marriage
yeah.
not having had sex.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I was innocent.
No,
you know?
100.
My
Yeah.
father spoke about having sex in marriage.
Yeah.
He didn't speak much about everything else that I could have done.
Sure.
Context also. He doesn't know the culture that I was in.
Yeah.
So I found myself then experiencing almost everything else. I was exposed to the pornographic material on TV, the social medias, Instagrams, and all of that. And unfortunately, my mind was defiled by that.
Yeah.
So when I then got into marriage, I had to be honest with my wife as well in terms of, listen, this is what I've experienced.
Yeah, 100,
You know,
100.
just because I'm walking into this thing without any what the world would refer as baggage in that sense. Like I haven't
As
had
a
sex
virgin.
as a virgin.
You don't
yeah.
have a body count.
I don't have a body count. Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, even though I'm a virgin and the world has glorified that, I know in front of God, that's not the case. I still need Jesus. So I was honest with her about that. And these are things that we work through
Yeah.
as we celebrate good marriage, marital sex. Yeah.
Dope.
That's dope. That's super dope. I think
For you, bro, maybe where Prince started and then a bit about your
journey. Okay.
Journey, yeah.
Cool. So I think my side, which is mixed, right, is on the one end thinking that, oh yeah, I'm holier than thou because I'm not doing some of the things that my other peers and colleagues are doing. I think peer pressure has always been something I've pushed against. And so that was more than anything the reason why I was like, I've been told that this is not good. Everyone else is doing it. Therefore, I am great because I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I'm winning.
Until I realized, no, just because you're not doing this one element doesn't mean that you haven't got baggage that you need to deal with and work through.
Yeah.
Which, again, the part that they don't tell you or that you don't see while you're engaging with it is it's not a war that you win in a week.
Nah, bro.
Whatever you're watching, whatever you're engaging with,
bro.
once you decide to stop, it's gonna take a while.
Yeah.
It might not want to stop with you.
Exactly. Because you've developed an appetite that now all of a sudden you're trying to switch off, right?
Keyword, appetite, bro.
Cool, that's fine. Walk in. This is sort of, I have this holier than thou view of myself because that's kind of the image that I had in primary school, in high school.
Yeah.
But quickly coming to realize, I got issues. This shouldn't be normal.
Yeah.
At some stage, this wasn't the norm for me, but now I've got an appetite that I'm like, where's this coming from? And it's like, oh, these are steps that you've been taking consistently. And they're compounding.
Yeah.
So now you're surprised by how they're the outworking, the symptom, but you've been engaging in one way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah.
I think, again, the beauty of marriage for me on the other side was walking in and remember that intimacy we were talking about. Being able to be bare and say, hey, I think I got these issues. And I think these issues will manifest themselves in very different ways within our sex life moving forward. And having a wife who's supportive of that. And being like, oh, okay, cool. This is some of the things that we could do to protect you. And again, this is the one element I keep being reminded of that I don't think is spoken about enough. Sex as protection. Some of the appetites you have are not going to serve you if you don't have a partner who's like, hey, I know we want to, have the spontaneous stuff or whatever, but it's been a while. You're going to need to get some. Just so that you're safe. I know your appetites, and I know you're trying to do the right thing, but there's these things that you've built up inside of you. There's an appetite, and what would you call it, libido, that you have that you need to release. And again, for me, that journey of realizing, oh shucks, I got baggage, I got things that I need to work with. Getting a partner who understands that and then supports that through the action. And obviously, it's not necessarily all duty bound. There's beauty, there's pleasure that comes out of it. But it's just an element that I feel like needs to be spoken about more because sometimes we have this movie vision of, oh, it's going to be flowers, it's going to be... Sometimes I really don't feel like it, but I think my partner needs it. And that's not just from a male side. It's even from a female side. So I think that's an element that I would be like, put in the jar there and be like, hey, think about it as well as an element of service and protection for your marriage.
Gents, I'm going to be outright. We need a part two. We need a part two because I think there's a lot.
We need a live session with this.
There's a lot that we should speak about just concerning marital sex. Because obviously now we're trying to paint a picture of where we're at contextually and then trying to take marital sex into that context. But as we're chatting, I'm like, smack.
You realize that we've actually started the conversation.
We started the conversation. So we need a part two. For me, personally, also grew up similar to you cats, very moralistic in the sense of not wanting to engage with sex because, it was wrong. My parents said I shouldn't do it, society.
AIDS.
AIDS, etc. But again, partook in everything else. Masturbation early on. But in high school, yes, it was weird, man. We prided ourselves by being the virgin squad. Everyone was having sex with everybody, and we were the weird kids, nerds with blazers, and we're the virgin squad. Until one brother loses the plot.
And then they come back.
But we had a pact, dog. What
dog.
are you doing, dog? He's like, father, see. It was real. Right?
And it's nice.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
so it was that kind of thing. And then when I got to varsity, I mean, you cats know a little bit about my story. So my dad left when I was 15, grew up with him first 15 years of my life. So he was my hero, right? But when I got to varsity, I was like, I'm going to do everything that this guy did not do, right? Dad doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink.
Yeah.
You know, he's a hero of the society, of the community. You
As
know?
you mentioned in the stuff he did,
Yeah.
I'm just like, hey,
Yeah. So,
you went.
no. I went, bro. So I was like, stuff it. I'm gonna be everything my dad wasn't, because I don't dig how he turned out.
Yeah.
So clearly, I'm gonna follow a different path. It
Yeah.
might produce different results,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I just went total opposite.
Sure.
Just get into the smoking, get into the drinking, sleep with as many people as you can, right? Wasn't a lot. People think now I have like,
wasn't a
receipts,
lot.
100.
receipts. Anyway, but I was wild, engaged in sex. And then when I got married, it was hard to kind of get rid of all of that stuff. But I think, again, having conversations with my wife was very helpful.
Sure.
And that's why I would even now in this chat prize communication
Yeah.
as like the
Yeah.
key thing.
Yeah.
So sex is important, but I think on top of it, slightly, right, in terms of priorities, I would put communication.
Yeah.
Right? People have sex in marriage and they don't even talk about their sex. Right? They don't even take notes, bro. So you come in.
So, okay, body language, you fell.
Baraka. And who's equipped in body language? Right? Like who's like who has a degree in body language when you come into marriage?
That's that
right?
whole faking
PhD,
stuff as well.
Bro,
That's
and
where
then
it links.
you trying to figure stuff out. You're trying to learn your wife's body. She's trying to learn your body, but I'm like, just talk, bro. So I'm like, that really helped us. That still helps us now.
Yeah.
That we talk before the thing. Sometimes we talk during the thing. Sometimes we talk after the thing.
Yeah.
Right? Take notes. Hey, what's up?
I didn't like it when you did.
Yeah. Should I do that next time? Should I not
Yeah.
do it? And I think that then really enriches the
Sure,
experience.
the intimacy that comes from that is actually different. It slaps
You can't
different.
have those chats in a one-night stand, bro.
Bro, you can't, bro.
No, you're wasting time.
'Cause what are you
the
doing?
night is almost over.
What are you
The night is
building?
almost over.
What are you
Now when I talk about what you like, just do what you gotta do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if we talking, it also makes all these other elements
Yeah.
like rise up. So vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
I can be vulnerable just by being naked.
Yeah.
But when I talk about your nakedness and you talk about mine, that elevates that vulnerability, The
Yeah.
intimacy, bro. When I can talk about what is actually happening, communicate, double check. Is this what I'm experiencing? Is this what you're experiencing?
Yeah.
I think it takes the thing to another level. So communication for us has been a key thing, dog. And I would say, and that's why I'm like, I think there's a lot of gems that we need to throw in with part 2 of this conversation. But last takeaway is, gents.
To your points on communication, I would say exploration. And just so that people don't think marital sex is boring. Like, that's the place where you can, like,
Bro.
like just you and your partner together.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to get into that. 'cause I
Agreeing.
might-
No one is harming anyone.
No,
Everyone
no,
is
no, no,
safe.
no, no.
Everyone is.
We are
has-
both being elevated.
And if it's not clear,
Hundreds.
it's the two of you. We're not talking
Yes.
about exploring.
just the two of us.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
Exactly.
Please.
My take home is that we need a part 2.
Dope. Man, I'm with you. Part 2. Part 2. Part
Yeah.
2.
I'm with you, gents, on part 2. I think the big thing for me is just be aware of what priority you're putting sex in.
Yeah.
Yes.
And understand
Yes.
where it sits in terms of the hierarchy.
Yes.
It's not the foundation.
Yes.
It is beneficial to have the foundation.
It's the
Yeah.
climax. Pun intended.
Pun
Amen.
intended. And that for me is
That's
the big
right.
thing. And I think as you wrap up as well, part 2, if you do have stuff that you would like us to touch on and engage with, put that in the comments.
Actually, yeah.
And I think it's a big topic. There's people who will have different views of what we're talking about. And I think it's a good point of discussion for us to engage and unpack the different views that exist. If you don't agree with us, okay, cool, let's unpack it.
100.
I'd say it's just, sorry, my parting
Yeah.
shot is the one I introduced with, which is the lens through which you look at life.
Yeah.
What is that lens that you look at life from or through? I never know what to say. But that's what's going to inform how you engage with sex.
Yep.
Yeah. I would probably just add an illustration to Simba's parting shot because I think it was dope. So what we're saying is if you begin with sex, right? Imagine a car that's been built, right? Doesn't have doors, doesn't have wheels. Maybe let's say it has wheels. You know, it's just a frame. Doesn't have doors, doesn't have windows, etc.
It's the chassis.
Yeah.
chassis.
And the engine is not fully complete. You know,
Yeah.
having sex at the beginning or trying to use that as the foundation is like driving a car that looks like that, right?
Yeah.
And you want this thing to run at full speed. It's just not gonna happen, right? But be friends. Put in the wheels together. Right?
Amen.
Go on dates, explore. Walter Sisulu Gardens, right? Put the windows. Right? Hallelujah. but just there's a whole lot of other things that happen before you get to the pinnacle, to the climax, which is sex, right?
Yeah.
So once you build the car, I think sex is when the car is fully built and you're inside and this thing runs. It's a full expression of all that you've built and all that you've created, right? But if you're trying to have a full expression of a friendship that doesn't exist, it's gonna suck. If you're trying to have a full expression of a intimacy that doesn't exist and you're forging intimacy through sex, it's gonna suck. Right? But sex is supposed to be an expression of intimacy that exists, a friendship that already exists, right? A partnership that already exists, world views that are already married to each other. Sex is a full expression. It's the fire. It's the aha moment. Right?
Yep.
Pun intended again. It's the aha moment, right? Where you're like, where you're like, aha, this is actually my friend, man. This is my homie. This is my partner. This is somebody that I dig, somebody that I'm gonna spend the rest of my life with. Right? Every time we're having sex, it's just fully expressing that. It's coming to the realization, this is what I've given myself to.
Yeah.
But you can't realize that at the beginning.
Spot on.
It's just weird, man. Right?
Yeah.
So
no.
that's what's up, affair. Two and a half husbands. If you are a half husband out there, we hope that you are becoming a better husband as you engage in these conversations around sex. With that said, man, we'll see you on part 2 with this one.
We'll see you on part 2.5.
Part 2.
Part 2.5.
All right, peace.
Peace,
Cheers.
man.